All right, so first off now, let's talk, or I should say, let's celebrate the 10th anniversary of a little film called Captain America, The Winter Soldier. This is going to be an early, celebration because, this movie came out on April the 4th of 2014, right? And, as we normally do with, the retrospect review section of these episodes, we'll just kind of share our brief histories with the film, and then we'll just do like a quick breakdown of what happened in the show and then give final thoughts on it, right? So, first leg, or I should say first phase of the MC movies, came out and whatnot. I know we were thoroughly enjoying them and whatnot, right? And then, then we got to the fifth film now in the MCU now, and that would be Captain America: The First Avenger. So I will confess something. I've actually never seen the infamous 1990 Captain America film. I know it's one of those things that you kind of had to see, especially if you're into so bad it's good movies. But I just never bothered to watch it. I heard it was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's a joke. There's a joke in this. There's a joke in this movie. There's a reference in that.
To the Winter Soldier?
In Winter Soldier, there's a joke in Winter Soldier as a reference to that movie. We'll get to that one.
Oh, please. Because I feel I probably know what it is, but I wouldn't know, obviously, because I haven't seen that film, right? Yeah, right. So, like with the previous four films, I saw Captain America: The First Avenger theatrically. Absolutely enjoyed it as well. And, I did a recap of it before rewatching The Winter Soldier. And it's a great thing too, because there's some great callbacks and references from the First Avenger that show up in The Winter Soldier, right? One thing that really makes this show work though is the tone. It really sets a perfect tone. And what it basically did, it took the Indiana Jones route, right? Where it's like, it's a superhero film set during World War II. So let's play on the adventure aspect of things, and because it involves Nazis, we love to do this, and we love to see this with Indiana Jones films, right? Yeah, we love to see Nazis get punched at and shot at and killed and blown up and all that kind of stuff, right? Because F Nazis, right? That's what it is, right? So it nailed that perfect tone, right? One thing that it does also well too is really give us a very convincing origin story, right? With seeing Chris Evans, and still to this day, right? It's very impressive how they do, the sort of the body double thing, if you will, that they do with him. Right. So you do buy into him being this 99 pound or 90 pound guy, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden he's all bulked up when he goes through the Super Soldier program, right? It also introduced me to McGill, Peggy Carter, right, played by Haley Atwell. I was like, yeah, I like you, right? You know what I mean? And then also you saw the relationship between Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes, right? Who you'll get to later on, right? And it gave us a really decent villain, not the best villain in the world, but a decent villain with Johann Schmidt, aka Red Skull, right? Played by the great Hugo Weaving. I mean, you can't go wrong with Hugo Weaving, right? And let's lastly, in terms of what I really like about the show, what really impressed me then and now, is how they play on the 40s World War II propaganda, right? Because I like those moments where it's like, it's about Captain America. He's a symbol. It's about fighting the war and all that kind of stuff. And you get this great montage where you're hearing this great sort of like Broadway song, and it's just him doing all these shows with all these showgirls and whatnot. And it's like, buy these bonds and help us in the war and all that kind of stuff. And that's like how his character evolves from just being an image of the Allied forces to literally become a hero, right? And then it ended pretty strongly as well too, with him waking up in 2011 and sort of realizing, oh wow, things have changed, right? I love that. That's actually a fantastic end. And it was even better, because we kind of got spoiled early on. Yeah, we knew we had to stick around for the end credit scene, and what did we get? We got a teaser for the Avengers. So it's like, word, we can't wait. And then 2012 happened, the Avengers happened, and boom, nothing was the same here, right? So now for Captain America: The Winter Soldier, this was one of my most highly anticipated films of 2014, and this came right before Guardians of the Galaxy, right? And don't forget, Ricardo, you and I, we went to see it in IMAX. We
Right.
came out of it
Right.
loving it. We were just blown away by just
Right.
what that show did. And just to close things off, it was my favorite show, my favorite movie of 2014, and it
Yeah.
remains in the
What happened? We went to Comic Fest in South, I think, in Sandu.
I think so. Yes, and
Yeah, it
like
was like a
right
kind
afterwards,
of
we had I think it was yes,
yeah.
it was in Sandwell. We had time, and don't mind
And
it
we
take
head
like
up
about an
right.
hour or so to get down to town, and we
Right.
took it in for like about a three 30 show, whatever it is, and yeah, we just came
Right.
out like yo, we loving this, right? But yeah, it was my favorite movie of 2014. When I did my best of the decade list with you and Julien, it was in my number 5, and because I enjoyed the follow up just as much. Yeah, I tied it with Civil War, which I absolutely enjoy as well, right?
Right.
We had that was one of the first MCU shows that we covered in this show here, right? And one thing that I really admire about Civil War, looking back at it now, is that even with all the Avengers stuff and introducing Black Panther and bringing in Baron Zemo and all that kind of stuff, it still was about Cap. It's one of those shows where, like, if you think about it, you're kind of worried. Wait, is this an Iron Man show, or is it trying
Right.
to set up with Wanda and Vision and all these? You know, it's have all these things, and then of course setting up Spider Man and all these kind of things. But still, somehow through all the chaos, it was still about Captain America. I love that it sort of ends where, yeah, it's either a Team Cap or Team Iron Man, right? It was like that. So still at the end of the day, with all the Avengers set up and all the setup for Infinity War and all that kind of stuff, it was still about Cap, right? And last point I'll make, and then I'll move on, and then we'll move on to you guys. For me, this it still remains one of the best MCU solo trilogies that we've gotten, right? As far as like just a superhero goes, right? Because yeah, from First Avenger to Civil War, it was just consistent, right? To me, Winter Soldier is still the best out of all of them. It is for me the Dark Knight of the MCU series, in my opinion. But yeah, just in terms of just the progression of Steve Rogers from this propaganda figure to being a real hero, to understanding that things have changed since the 40s and we're living in a new world now. And then now, like I can't even trust my own Avenger brethren anymore. So now we got to be fighting each other, right? So it's just the progression that this character went through over the course of these 3 movies was great. And then, of course, there were the Avengers films. And then, of course, his story wrapped up excellently, in my opinion, with Endgame, right? So yeah, just pound for pound in terms of character growth. Yeah, his Captain America's own in the MCU is nothing short of perfect in my opinion, right? But we'll talk about that later on, right? But yeah, while I catch my breath, Julian, yeah, your history with the Winter Soldier film, and you can mention First Avenger and Civil War, and the other instances where Cap appeared in the MCU.
Sure, that's no problem. Actually, First Avenger, I think the first time I watched it, I didn't love it. I think I went to see it at cinema, and I don't know, it's kind of tired and whatever. I was just like, yeah, it's all right. But revisiting it, I was like, okay, I get what they were doing, and it's a very fun, it's an entertaining film. It's not, I mean, it's kind of middle of the road MCU when it came out, and still that, but it's a fun kind of popcorn, relax, enjoy yourself. And as you say, it gave us, Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter, which is one of the best contributions to the MCU, so you can't be too mad at it. But so going into Winter Soldier, I was like, okay, I'm not really sure what I expected because I wasn't in love with First Avenger, and I was blown away. And I agree with you. When it came out, I was like, okay, this is the best of the MCU. And how many 10 plus movies later, I still think is the best, even with Endgame, even with Civil War, even with Infinity War. And I think what makes Winter Soldier stand out from all the other MCU films, it's a film that you go into it and you're so expecting, well, okay, there's a superhero movie, it's gonna go from B to C, it's just gonna follow anything, and it doesn't do that. This is like, no, this is not a regular superhero movie. This is a spy action movie, and we're gonna have a bunch of twists, and you have no idea what is gonna happen. And I mean, as a cinephile and as a film reviewer, that is so very rare to get just in movies generally, and to get that in the MCU. And I mean, some of the best action. There's emotional stakes. There's comedy. It's just the whole package, and the movie is just perfection from start to finish. And it's just like it has yet to be topped. And with the current state of the MCU, I doubt it's going to be topped. So yeah, it's still I love it. It's still number one MCU for me.
So any thoughts on Civil War at least? I mean, in terms of just the Captain America trilogy as a whole.
I do enjoy Civil War. I mean, it has a lot of the spectacle, but for me, it does kind of feel like a Avengers 2.5 kind of,
It,
where I
it
mean, yeah,
is.
you do have,
It
yeah,
actually is. When you really think about it, it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
it is, yeah. So I mean, yeah, you do have the whole Cap and Iron Man and the whole Bucky thing, but to me, it's just this big grand adventure. But I think the plotting in Winter Soldier, it's so precise and it's so perfect, whereas in Civil War, I mean, they have to do a little setting up of stuff, and you have to pull away. So at times you're like, okay, things kind of drag a little bit, but with Winter Soldier, once you in there, you are riveted, and it's like, did that happen? Where is this going? What is happening? And it just pulls you in. Civil War, just like, okay, I'm enjoying this, and you have the big airports. You're like, woo, it's a big and exciting, and the ending and stuff. It's entertaining, but Civil War, Winter Soldier for me is next level.
All right. Agreed. Ricardo, your quick history with the Winter Soldier and the film. Well, I should say First Avenger, and to extent
Sure.
Civil War.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember taking in Captain America in Cinema 8 with some friends. Loved it. I thought it was a perfect tune and how you're supposed to do that story. I think it was Drew Johnson was the director, so it was real Rocketeer vibes. They nailed it. You could find a very early Star-Lord mother in that. She playing somebody else, and then you could find a young Natalie Dormer in that. Like, good thing.
Oh, that was her. I was watching the face, and like, I know that face. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Who was hitting on Steve? Right.
Right. And so I dig the movie. I dug it for what it was trying to do as an origin story. It had a lot of great moments, especially like the flag scene and everything, or the grenade scene, little stuff like that. It's like, yep, they're nailing it. And yeah, the action was a little goofy at times, but that was the tone, and that's why it worked. But yeah, then Avengers came and went. It blew up the world, and everybody thought, at least my attitude was, well, only really the Avengers film's gonna blow you away, right? The others there's gonna be spouts of excellence and then mediocrity, spouts of excellence, mediocrity, and then that same day we saw it. A friend of mine, where he's a comic guy, Hazley, shout out to Hazley. He say, hey boy, you see Captain America Winter Soldier yet? And he's like, no, I see it yet. He's like, boy, God, see it, boy, real hard. So he hyped me up already. The man generally have good opinions about comics, the comic book movies. So like, all right, cool. I hyped. And yeah, then we was there that day, and then we went up to see it, and yeah, it blew my way. And I remember turning to you, I was like, bro, was this better than Avengers? Kinda was. Like, it was pretty kind of, it was kind of awesome. I mean, what it did nail really well is the spy thriller aspect of it, right? Funny enough, they have Robert Redford in it because 3 Days to the Condor, right? That is what it was. Straight up, they just take that and let's make it a Marvel film.
Yeah.
Really, really amazing spy film. Just it really works in terms of action, big reveals, plot reveals, the twists. They drop something in this that they pay off in Winter Soldier, I thought, very brilliantly. Because they kind of make you forget about it, and then they drop it on you, and the way they drop it on you is just good storytelling. For those who already know the comic, the big reveal in this one wasn't a super big reveal, because we kind of know, but then we kind of knew from since First Avenger anyway, so like whatever. But why it comes together so well is that, yeah, they make you, again, you're thinking, what Falcon and just Black Widow with him, they can't do nothing to them. Like nothing that he need a whole Avengers team to solve this. No, all three of them kick a lot of ass together, and it really, really works and comes together. Follow up Civil War, kind of loved it. Yes, it is a little. It has to stretch the plot a little bit on here or there for it to make some sense. And yes, the airport fight is straight up like a slightly more serious version of the Anchorman fight. It is something that you're not supposed to take seriously. It's just more the spectacle of it. So the stakes wasn't as high, but it get pitch black at the end, and that's why that worked so well for me. But yes, I do think Winter Soldier is better. I do not think Captain America: Winter Soldier is the best of the MCU. I reserve that to something else. But
Fair enough, fair enough. Like you're not supposed to like wholeheartedly agree, so it's fine.
there's one other movie that beats it out actually. Very very close to me, but I put that higher because of the scale and scope of that film. But it's number 2 for me. Very very high in the MCU. Just everything comes together really well. So many great moments and parts in this. Good villainy, good storytelling. It very concurrent at the time. The relevance of it. Especially now, but even then, it was something that the filmmakers were concerned about, and it made perfect sense them putting it in the comics, in the comic book movie. And yeah, it's very very politically relevant. It really works, and yeah, it's so unlikely to square a big blockbuster with some pressing issues in that way, and that having Captain America be the lens, so that is like just kind of pitch perfect, and yeah, it just comes together so well. Yeah, really really big fan of this movie, loved it, could watch it anytime, enjoy it, stuff like that.
Yeah, same here. 'Cause literally, yeah, like for me, yeah, you're right. I could watch that anytime as well. And lastly, Tracy, your history with I was going to say Civil War. Your history with the Winter Soldier and to extent First Avenger and Civil War.
I have fond memories of all of Captain America's films, that entire trilogy. So, like the first one, I think I saw that one in Movie Town. I was there with a friend of mine. She's overseas now, but it was like, okay, she didn't really watch a lot of these movies, so it was kind of like introducing her to see how it could play. And I really and truly had fun with the very first one. It really was like, yes, it has this adventure vibe. It had the 1940s vibe, but I loved it. I ate every minute of that. And then, of course, Civil War, which is the last one. Civil War really is, I agree with you guys, Civil War really and truly is 2.5 Avengers. So for me, whenever we're ranking, whenever people start talking about like 4 or 5 Avengers films, I always have to add in, Civil War to that, because that is really and truly 2.5. And it is, at the end of the day, they do keep the core of Steve Rogers in it, and I appreciate that, and I think that is pretty cool. But Winter Soldier is one of those films that, and Kevin Feige, and they always talk about like how, well, at the time, they would talk about how they infuse different things. So, like, Ant-Man is a heist film in a comic book setting, or, in terms of Winter Soldier, it is political espionage and spy thriller in a comic book film. So, you've got different genres in it. But Winter Soldier, for me, it was so up there. It was, people used to say words like gritty and grounded and all that kind of stuff to talk about the kind of superhero films that they want. And I feel like that's what you got with it, but it wasn't. And without calling any particular director's name, it wasn't. Your protagonist suddenly changing who he was on a completely molecular level and saying things like, "I guess nobody stays pure in this world," in order to be gritty. That's kind of, they stayed away from that, and I was very happy about that. In terms of one key memory I have of Winter Soldier, I remember that was around the time that season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was out. And I remember the reports. I remember like Ming Na Wen and a couple of the others were talking about they got to see the screening first of Winter Soldier, and how it ended. It sort of made them wonder, well, their whole show was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., what's going to happen now? And Twitter back in the day was still asking, okay, well, this has happened, what's going to happen for them? And there was a whole discourse about that, but that played out quite nicely. Does Winter Soldier still stand up today? Yes. It is still one of my favorite movies, period. And I always base that on the idea of how much rewatchability and how much fast forwarding of a show do I have to fast forward in order to get a good piece of something. And I don't have that with Winter Soldier, so that is always tops. However, I will say, and I will stand on this hill, that Winter Soldier is a brilliant MCU film until the Eternals came out, for all the reasons that Winter Soldier wasn't, because Winter Soldier is a soldier and political intrigue and spy and how that played, but at the heart of it was Steve. And then you had the Eternals, which was mythology and religion and all of that wrapped up in this core idea of what does it mean to be human and what does it mean to be alive. And so those two films are like on the top mountain side for me, but I kind of put Eternals a little bit ahead of Winter Soldier, and I'm gonna, that's the hill I will be on. But yes, Winter Soldier is still peak MCU for me.
All right, so we have a lot to talk about here, so I'm going to move as fast as possible, right? So on to the Winter Soldier. Just to kick things off, this is actually our official introduction to Falcon, played by Papa Doc,
Right.
aka Tupac, you know what I mean, Anthony Mackie, right?
Right.
Who
Yeah,
eventually will become the new Captain America in the finale of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That was actually a great moment. And just in retrospect, I like how that show sets up. Oh, it could be him or it could be Bucky. Even though when you look back at it, it was obviously gonna be Falcon. Like it was obviously gonna be Sam Wilson. Like it couldn't be Bucky after all the men you killed over like X amount of decades. Like you being Captain America, come on, right? We say you a guy with a gun, bro, not with a shield. Just saying. But anyway, I'm curious to see how that plays out with Captain America: Brave New World, which we're supposed to be getting next year. Keeping fingers crossed, right? There's a great setup with Steve and Sam taking a jog in the early morning, and it just speaks for a great little Gagner, on your left, right, where Cap just passes him straight, right. And I like that in Avengers Endgame, Falcon said that to him in the build up to the epic final battle, which kind of brought the man tears out of me. It was just so epic. And also
yes, it does.
Yeah, boy, and especially the music by Alan Silvestri music there. Oof. Anyway, also shout out to Sam for putting me, a lot of people, on to Marvin Gaye's Trouble Man movie soundtrack. I didn't even, I heard about the film before, but I didn't know that Marvin Gaye worked on it, right? I love that they actually use that song in the montage that shows up in the finale, well, the final sequence of the film here. So yeah, shout out to Sam for putting us on, man. You do your thing. So this film has a great action-packed setup at the beginning with Cap and fellow Avenger Black Widow, R.I.P. Black Widow, sent on a mission to take down these pirates who pretty much took this launch ship, the Shield launch ship called the Lemurian Star hostage, right? And the pirates are led by this guy called George's Batroc. If I butcher the main name, forgive me, right? And one of the hostages is this Shield officer named Sitwell. More on him later. The show also at this point introduces to Romlau, who is played by oh gosh, I forget the names right now. Let me just pull it up. Frank Grillo. Yeah, Frank Grillo. Who I was really all too familiar with until I saw that second Purge film. And I was like, okay, now the Purge movie started to make sense, because yeah, the premise is still trash, but that second film was great. I could take that out of all the other Purge films, right? Speaking of Black Widow, aka Natasha, I love the banter that's set up early on between her and Steve, just the dynamic between the two of them, right? And you have to keep in mind this is before Age of Ultron, so they didn't really set up this whole love thing going on between Natasha and Bruce Banner, right? That didn't really happen as yet. They kind of hinted it early on with the first Avengers film, but not as much as it did in Age of Ultron, right? But here, I like how it's kind of playful. It's her kind of making fun of his age and who he should hook up with. It'll be like, oh, you should hook up with the secretary, oh, that one who works, nights, I mean? I like how they set that up there, right? But that deep down inside, she kind of like him. She kind of like him, right? But Steve being Steve, he's just all about Peggy. You know what I mean? And there's a moment later on where he actually meets Peggy. But I'll get to that in a bit, right? And just in terms of that action scene again, right? There's a great wide shot. There's also a tracking shot as well too, right? Where this is right after Cap and Black Widow land on the boat, right? On the ship, sorry. Where you're seeing Cap running at top speed and he just take down a couple of pirates with his shieldness. So I like that as a great callback to the on your left moment, right? And yeah, throughout the show you really see just how fast of a runner Cap is, though, like seriously fast, right? And in this sequence, you get a clear idea of the type of action you're gonna get in this film. It's fast, it's furious, there's a lot of punches, kicks, gunshots, explosions, and of course, shield slashes. If you know, right? And you really see just how badass the fight choreography is going to be, right? Thanks to the fight scene between Cap and Batroc. I really, really dug that fight scene there, right? And you can tell that.
And I always appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was saying I always appreciate like when he put his shield down.
Yes.
When Batroc asked him, I thought you were more than your shield, and he puts the shield down. He takes off the mask, and gives him a cuttass. But
Yes,
that's
I
something I
love
like.
that. And
Yeah.
I could tell. Sorry, go on.
Well, no, I say you were talking about the action, and you mentioned Black Widow, and it's funny that for me, this is like the peak Black Widow action you get in the entire MCU. I mean,
Yeah.
they did the retro active movie for her, which was, I mean, there's a whole mess there. But just how
They
just how they
try.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, this is where Black Widow is supposed to be, and where she's shown this kind of spike. And the action with her, I mean, Cap shines a lot, but she as well, they really choreographed her action so very well. I really loved it.
Agreed. And I just love the wire, just that wire that she used and how she kind of spins around you and, wrap it around your neck. I love that. I could watch those scenes any day, right? But you could tell that the Russo brothers, right, were inspired by great spy action films of the 2000s and early 2010s, right? Because you see elements of the Bourne trilogy. You see Skyfall in it. You see Casino Royale. Because, Cap doing some parkour, dread. Like, I watched this, dude is running and jumping on walls and flipping. And like, what? Like, Cap wasn't doing this in the First Avenger. Like, I don't know, like, dog, like, man clearly learned a lot between 2011 to 2014. But that man,
he read up a lot and he went on
YouTube videos or something. No, seriously. Like, that man learned a lot over I should say close to 3-year gap, right? Since he
wasn't just watching movies, He was updating on everything.
Yeah, boy. Seriously, boy, with the movements he had there, right? Also, as you mentioned, Ricardo, you could tell that the Russos drew inspiration from Treaties of the Condor, which I have yet to watch. I know, shame on me, I know, and I love me a 70s thriller, but I haven't seen that as yet. And it's great that they actually got the great Robert Redford to play Alexander Shield, Pierce, right? Who is the Shield senior official, but more on him later, right? I love the first conversation scene between Cap and Nick Fury because it sets up the movie's theme of trust, right? That whole scene is great, right? Because Cap thought that the mission was just about saving the hostages, but near the end of the rescue, Natasha just puts in his flash drive and starts copying some files, some Shield data, like reacquiring it for Nick now. And Cap kind of feels betrayed and is like, yo, Nick, you're supposed to tell me what's going on. How you have her, doing some side mission. Like, no, well, she had a mission. She did what she had to do, right? And it has a great line where Cap says, soldiers trust each other. That's what makes it an army. Not a bunch of people running around shooting guns. Nick responds, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
Right. Which I thought was a great thing, and then the payoff for that is so stupid. I hate it. I really hated the payoff for that. They should have, oh my God, whatever.
Yeah, don't remind of that, Matthew. Please, please don't.
I know. But anyway, so after that conversation, Nick introduces Cap to Project Insight, right, which is basically 3 helicarriers that designed to neutralize threats from above before they even happen, right? And
they have a modification from Iron Man with the floating instead of the fans,
with how they propel each other, how they propel, right? And well, basically with the Lemurian star, right? The satellites connecting them were pretty much launched via that ship, right? And just looking back at this show, right? Because I remember, we talked about the Avengers when it had its 10th anniversary, right? And it's funny that Nick Fury was inspired, in quotes, to make these helicarriers after the Battle of New York.
Right.
Because prior to that event, right, he wanted to use the Tesseract in the Avengers to make weapons of mass destruction to prevent stuff like what happened in the middle of Thor when that big, I forgot the name of the giant robot thing came down and attacked the town. So is this whole idea of, we don't want to be caught with our pants down, so we need to be prepared. So, Nick now want to have this thing that could pretty much gun down anybody from above, right? So is that kind of mindset that Nick on that is so insidious, but at the same time you understand why, from a military kind of perspective. I love that.
Yeah, this is the political element of it, because straight up some post 9/11, aesthetics and Bush administration stuff, about terrorism, what they're doing with these ideas, and basically the idea of surveillance versus freedom, or that whole argument, right?
Yeah. Great point.
There's 2 random things. One, I want to just big up the costume designer for. I can't remember who it was, but the costume design, because like I remember when Nick is going down in the elevator, when he's actually getting to see all the ships and everything, the color that he has on the suit that he wears,
Yeah.
that kind of military looking Nero neck color suit, I remember looking at it and getting chills because it felt in a very real sense like what Red Skull was wearing.
Yes.
So the idea
That's
of
that's the
how
comparison. Yes.
that gave me chills when I saw it. So that was something. And then, of course, when Steve says to him, this isn't protection. This is fear. Holding a gun to everybody's head is not protection. It's actually fear. But those two things, especially that costume design for this film and how they played Nick, that was just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they pepper it with Nick's mindset, because what I like about it is that Nick is not in on it, right? Because it's not like they're going to have, Nick part of Hydra or anything like that. It's just Nick is the perfect person to utilize their plan because of his history and paranoia. And it is a great, like he tells this great anecdotal story about his grandfather. With a gun. Great moment. You could immediately understand how this dude is thinking now, and why he's a problem in that sense, because he could be easily manipulated in his own way now. Even though he's very vigilant and whatnot, he have his own, issues here or there now. And they go back and forth about it in him. And that's a great little thing with that, how they play that out. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, great points. Right, so there's a nice moment where Cap visits the Smithsonian, and he goes into what I'm going to call the Captain American wing, right? And I like that, they talk about his influence and, the victories that he achieved in World War II, right? And there's a great moment where he's watching an interview, right, with Peggy Carter in 1953, and she's talking about how one of the soldiers that Cap saved in the first film eventually became her husband. And it's a great visual callback to Peggy in the first film, watching a newsreel and seeing Cap's compass, which had Peggy's picture on it. I love that. That was a great moment. And then you see, older Cap now looking at the same compass while he's watching the interview. That's a great moment, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, they have a nice little thing where you tell the kid to keep quiet. Little boy.
Yeah.
Pick up, notice him now.
Yes.
Well, they start the whole bullshit thing of you could just wear a ball cap, and that's your disguise in the MCU.
Oh,
everybody's that dumb joke. And it's something that there's another moment in this movie that addresses that, which I thought was kind of dumb, to be honest. But whatever, it's fine.
Right.
We'll get to that.
Okay. Well, if I don't bring it up, I guess you will, right? In the next scene, right? I thought this was a great moment as well, too, right? There's so much great moments in this film. Cap visits an elderly and, unfortunately, dying Peggy, right? And I had to remind myself, yes, in Civil War, she actually died, and he had the funeral, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
The makeup done to Haley Atwell's face is amazing, though. She really, really looks old here, but I was like, what? Like, she looks like the sweet, Peggy that we love, but she looked real old, though. But anyway, right? There's a great bit of characterization, right, where the scene starts with her talking to him normal. And then afterwards, and it's kind of implied that she probably have Alzheimer's or something like that. She's like,
dementia,
dementia. Like, Steve, you're alive. It's been so long, right? And that's like a great bit of character development here. Okay, you have to remember that the Steve that we're seeing here now, remember, he was frozen for years now. So she's probably in that moment in the film, just kind of thinking, oh, you're supposed to be older. Or sorry, she's being reminded of how he looks like, because that was the last time he saw her. Sorry, she saw him before he went into the ice now. So that's a great moment now. Just her not being able to distinguish the old Cap from the new Cap, or I should say old Steve from new Steve. That's brilliant, right? Later on now, Nick is in his bulletproof Chevrolet on his way to meet Maria Hill. R.I.P. Maria Hill. I'll talk about her later on. He stops at a red light and he notices this cop car, right? And then as the light goes green, another cop car just smashes into it, right? And then 3 others just come in and start cornering it and whatnot, right? A SWAT van shows up and some officers start firing.
There's a great moment before this. So he just driving this. Well, it's an Escalade, I think he's driving, and police officers pull up and it's like, as well, black man in an Escalade kind of thing. So you cannot make a joke about that and think, but then you notice something off with these police stuff.
Yes,
but
yes.
It's right, yeah.
Yeah. You're right. I forgot what it is. He told them something when he was.
You want to see my lease?
Right, that's it. You want to see my lease?
My lease?
Yeah.
Right.
So cops coming out firing shots. Nick is injured at this point. He injects an anesthetic. He manages to flee, and this car chase begins, right? And for me, this car chase alone highlights one of the things I love about this movie, right? the idea that these fictional comic book characters in this real world here could die, you know. Like every moment of action from this point onwards, boy, you get the sense that, wow, these characters can die, Dread. They are in danger here, Dread, you know what I mean? And it just adds to the intensity of what's going on. And of course, Henry Jackman, shout out to Henry Jackman, his music for this dude brilliantly captures the tension of this, right? So, in retrospect, right, I can imagine like people watching this film as like, but wait now, but it's 32 minutes in, no Winter Soldier, what going on? Where Winter Soldier at, right? Now, I can understand that as a criticism, but I love that the Russos were brave enough to say, look, it's more than just the Winter Soldier we're tackling, right? We're doing a lot of things, and really when we say the film is called The Winter Soldier, it's more like a symbol of what the show really is about, but it's not entirely about him, right? But I could understand that being a criticism, you know, oh, where is he? Why he show up so late? Blah, 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 right? But when the Winter Soldier does show up, boy, he makes his presence known, boy. So, like, on his way to safety now, back to Nick, right? He just spots the Winter Soldier standing in the middle of the street, right? And there's a reason why I'm calling him the Winter Soldier at this point, right? I'll get to that later on. While the Winter Soldier fires an explosive projectile, it, like, positions itself right underneath, right? And it explodes. And I love that wide shot where you see the car just sliding past the Winter Soldier, and he just kind of ducks slightly away from it.
There's a lot of great camera work in this, like when he barely recovers, and it's when Nick barely recovers from the action, and then he looks up and they see Winter Soldier out of focus, and he just sharply cuts into focus. Like, all right, they know what they're doing.
Yes.
But him just being prepped for that fight was so badass when he was just timing the whole thing and get the computer to count down with the armor.
Yes.
And then he wait for 1%, knowing that he will be able to shoot out with that level of force now with the gun. Stuff like that.
Yes.
They had little jokes with that, like, you know, what is working in the thing, and say, well, air condition is working, stuff like that.
And is he sort of Jarvis voice? I know it's not Jarvis, but it sounds like him. That's the point. Yeah.
Right.
That announcer voice is, if I'm not mistaken, that is the same announcer voice that usually does the narration for like Ancient Aliens and a whole bunch of stuff on history.
Okay. I don't know.
Because it's like,
I don't know the voice actors.
I think,
But yeah, they just had a good action sequence there. They make it harder. I get the feeling that the reason why Winter Soldier doesn't show up early because he just thought that these cops would have just nailed this old man, this old veteran, effectively. You know how hard it is to kill him, right?
with an eye patch to boot. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
How hard it is to kill us, but you don't realize Nick Fury's that guy now. So you know, you can't come. You gotta come good. And they needed to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and you know, I love the ominous theme that Henry Jackman gives him. I just love how, like, almost like it sounds like this sort of like shepherd's tone in a sense, but like the other bits of like sound just kind of cuts off. Like, I love that, right? And yeah, you know what I mean? As he show up and he ripped the door away now, Nick escaped he escaped, right? He just literally borrowed his way through under the street with his handheld device, right? But yeah, that car chase sequence, absolutely love it. I think that it sets up the dark tone that we will get going forward. Julien, I don't know if you have anything to weigh on that car chase and how awesome it was.
No, but it was, and as you're saying, it's something that we hadn't seen up to that point. It's like, okay, are we still watching a MCU superhero movie? What is happening? It's so dark and gritty, and it's just, you know, it as much as the character is shocked, we the audience are shocked as well too.
Agreed.
As you're saying, and fantastic introduction. And I had no problem with how long it took before he brought it, because it was so well. I had no issue. I thought it was a perfect scene, and really, as you all had said, set the tone. Is like, okay, this is not all MCU. This is new thing we're doing here. I loved it.
New things, yeah. All right, so cut to nighttime now. Cap returns home. He runs into a woman who will be later revealed as Sharon Carter, or Agent 13, who I'll never forget. There's this weird heel turn in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, I kind of get, I kind of don't.
Again, it don't make a lick of sense. That don't make a lick of sense, however.
It doesn't. Like, you tell about,
it don't make a lick of sense to me. That's so dotish, and don't make a lick of sense.
It's like, Hydra
like talk about nice. Like, talk about the good times. Like, talk about the good times.
You know what I mean? Like, Hydra happened, so I doing shady shit now. Like, it's weird, right? But whatever.
It don't make it, whatever.
Anyway, so Cap realizes somebody's in his apartment because, you know, he's hearing his stereo. His stereo's on, right? And points for the song that plays, right? So it's this 40s sort of lovey-dovey song, right? But it's the same song that Cap dances to with Peggy at the end of Endgame. I love that. That's nice, right?
Right.
And surprise, surprise, it's a bruised up Nick hiding out in Cap's apartment, right? So it's a blink and you miss it moment where Nick says, "My wife kicked me out." And then Cap responds,
Right.
"I didn't even know you had a wife," right? So nice foreshadowing for Secret Invasion. So is that you could tell
Right,
like
well.
whoever wrote Secret Invasion was like, maybe we should do our research and go back and watch Winter Soldier. It's like, oh wait, because the point I get at is that Nick was seeing this because he cannot type it out on his phone, ears everywhere, right? So you know, it's meant to be, he just making old talk, but it doesn't have to be true. But the person who clearly wrote Secret Invasion, I don't know who did, probably said, you know what, it'd be interesting if he actually had a wife, who was
Like,
in Secret Invasion and didn't even show up in the Marvels. She wasn't in the Marvels.
Again, Matthew, you're reminded us of the good times, Matthew. You have to keep it the good times.
Good times.
But I will throw this out there though. When he said that, how I interpreted it was, Nick is married to his job, so his wife kicked him out would have been the drama that he was starting to see happening over at Shield. Because you remember, just before he got into the car and did all of that and the chase and all of that, he was trying to access the files, and he realized that the file was redacted by Nicholas J. Fury, and it wasn't him who was redacting it. So when he said, "My wife kicked me out," and he's like bruised and beaten and all this kind of weird looking, in my mind, I was just seeing that with Shield being his wife. Because then when we go, how much of a years later, we actually see that his wife is a Skrull. That is like, okay, that's an interesting retrofit. But yeah, that's where my brain was.
Yeah. So suddenly while they're talking here, Nick gets hit with a few shots, right? It's fired from the building opposite the one that he and Cap are in, right? He gives Cap the same flash drive that Natasha had, and he says, "Trust no one," right? So suddenly Sharon shows up with a gun and she's like, "Rogers, are you okay, Rogers?" Or whatever it is, right? And she says that she was assigned by Nick to protect Cap, right? So Cap notices the shooter and of course is the Winter Soldier and gives chase, right? And again, it's Cap doing parkour. Dude, man is taking his shield and busting through walls, right? When I see that, I like, just going back to what Julien said, like, this is in the same MCU universe, like, what going on here? Like, shit get real grimy, dude. This man is literally busting through walls trying to find this dude, right? And then we get that shot, right? Which first time I saw it in the trailer, it made my jaw drop. When I saw it again, I get chills, right? And this is where Cap bursts through a window, spots the Winter Soldier about to run towards a ledge, throws his shield, and then the Winter Soldier catches it with his metal arm. When I see that again, like for the first time in a long while, I lose my breath, like, dog, that was such a tense moment, though. That's kind of setting up just how strong and really how intimidating the Winter Soldier is, though. I love that scene. I don't know if y'all have anything to weigh in on this whole chase scene and where it ends with him grabbing that shield. And I forgot to mention too, throwing it back at him too, and then sending back Steve just a few meters off, like boom. Like, I love that. But yeah, any thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, I forget who just make fun of this, but he could easily just grab the shield and go. Whatever.
I know,
like,
but...
have your shield. But it's a hype moment. Yeah, but yeah, this is a good thing. Just set up the character really well. Right? This guy's a badass. He's just as fast, just as strong as you are. He's not somebody to be trifled with. Immediate, quick information. They make it work.
Yes. So Nick is sent to the hospital, and boy, like, I'll never forget seeing this for the first time, because we in the audience was thinking, because Cap is there seeing this, Cap, Natasha, even Romla was there, and Maria. Yeah, we there like, Nick dead, because we seen him on the operating table. We seen that, his stats are low, whatnot. We hearing the beep. It's like, dog, like, this is the kind of show you're watching here. Nick dead us, okay. But seeing it again, I love how it's all set up. That's all he'll say, right? But yeah, I mean, how could you not think he was dead, right? That I kind of sell myself out here a little bit, but how can you not think back then that Nick Fury of all people was dead, right? But anyway, so Cap is brought into Pierce's office for questioning, right? Because even before he left the hospital, everybody asked him, why Nick show up in the apartment for, right? And Pierce asks his question once, and he mentions how he believes the reason why Nick got killed was because he was working with the pirates from before, and it was a sour deal, and because it surrounded selling the information that was on the flash drive, right? Classified intelligence, right? Which is the information about Project Insight and how to control it, right? So PS asks the question again, and then Cap responds where he says he told me not to trust anyone, and PS says, just paraphrasing here, somebody tried to kill my friend, and look, I'm not gonna let anybody get in the way of finding that person, right? Even if it's you. And then, Cap leaves the office, right? And then we get what is, in my opinion, one of the best fight scenes, not just in this movie, but of the 2010s. I love the setup for this, right? So Cap's in the elevator.
So, if you're familiar, right? So if you're familiar with what we call it, with Community did this, and this is where I think the Russos got the job.
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Community in a long while, right? So forgive me.
Well, right. So the paint gun episode of Community had a scene very similar to this.
I remember the paint gun episode. I just don't remember that sequence. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they made a really fun version, but that's what it was. It's the same, really similar, almost identical sequence. But yeah, it's straight up that.
Okay,
straight up that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I really should rewatch that though. Yeah, because that episode is classic, right? Yeah, so Cap's on his way down to go to Operation Control. Rumlow and some of his, Strike, that's the name of the group, commando teammates show up, right? And just old talk, right? Rumlow talked to him a little bit, and you see the commandos kind of like touching the guns real unconsciously and whatnot, right? And then the elevator stops right midway, and then more men come inside, right? I just like seeing it for myself. I thought the fight was gonna start there, right? But then it stops one last time, and then more people show up, and that's when Cap's like, "All right, this is what we're doing."
Right.
Okay.
I think he noticed the one of the business guys. They had sweat on the brow.
Yeah, this one guy who showed up. This one guy showed up with a briefcase. I forgot about that. Right. Yeah, and he was sweating, right? And then he dropped one of the best lines in this whole movie. Before we get started, does anybody want to get out? Mike drop. Cap start kicking ass, he dropping body after body. And the beauty of this whole fight scene to me is how tight the space is, right? And where the camera is set up and whatnot, right? And and Cap is, he is put in a position where he have to move. You have to move quickly, right? Because everybody like trying to I love that there's a moment where the guy who had the briefcase pulls out the handle, and it's like this electrical brace, magnetic brace, and this keeps sticking into the wall. I love that. I love that, right? And Cap do what he had to do. He kick ass. It's simple, but it's beautifully executed, right? And I love that top-down shot though, with all the bodies on the floor, and Cap just use his foot, spring the steel, and you hear that spring sound effect, and he just catch it. Love that sequence, right? So while I catch my breath, you could gush over how awesome that elevator fight is.
I think if anybody wasn't a Captain America fan before that, when they saw that, he's like, all right, okay, cool. I see it. That was just masterful.
Yeah, up until this point, people was kind of dogging on Cap, especially in the First Avengers, right? Oh, Cap kind of corny, and he really doing much, and he kind of do this, and so and so. And I was digging Cap in that in the Avengers, so what it was. Yeah, the outfit don't really work, even though it does look a lot better when they get dirty, however. And by this, they say, all right, look, we had to make the man, we had to hype up the man. And yeah, again, the Russos straight up, they direct that episode in Community brilliantly. This is why they were hired. I think this is exactly why they were hired, because they could just translate that material perfectly one-to-one, make it really work, and it just come together so well. What I like about this sequence too is that it just sets up Romlo quite well as the kind of person he is. Because earlier, he does look like he's just the kind of cynical guy when he was on the plane, right? And Cap jumped without the parachute. So you're thinking he's just a normal guy, but then you realize how kind of weird and sneaky he is. He tried to do this double trick thing with the taser baton thing, little stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a creep. He's a little sneaky, little underhanded, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Little quick character stuff that you learn in this. Yeah, this is real hot. And then again, that shield is just straight up magic, but they make it work, Dread. Just kick it up, and then after he busts out and land, how much 70 stories or
which was gonna get to, but the man just he had no choice. He had to escape the building, right? Man jumped through the window of the elevator, through a glass ceiling, right? And
prior to that,
to cushion the fall.
Prior to that, he cuts the cables to drop a little bit because more, SWAT guys was coming. So it's stopped, but the emergency brake kicks in, and then he jumps out. I'm like, all right, he quick thinking, Cap, sharp, body feet, And then they give him a next action sequence after this, which was awesome, which was real good too. It's like, well, they're cooking with the show, right?
Yeah,
they're real cooking.
Is that the scene where he was escaping on bike, and then
Yeah,
right,
take out,
and then
take out
and then this plane. Well, sorry, this
Yeah, he take
aircraft
out the-
shows up.
Yeah, well, I forget what it's called. Not I forget the name of the thing.
Well, is it a small
Some kind of
helicarrier?
jet.
It wasn't. Well, I'll call it
No,
a
no,
jet.
it's
I think is it the quad jet?
Quinn Jets.
Quinn
Quinn
Jets.
jet.
Yeah.
Quinn
Jets. Quinn Jets.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Julien.
Right, I was trying to remember. Right. Yeah, man, take it on a Quinn Jet by himself, Jet. Like, Cap is that guy. Cap is that guy.
But you're absolutely right, though. And I won't lie, rewatching this though, I get chills, you know.
Yeah,
Blame it on Cap's movements, blame it on the
Yeah.
shield and how he use it, or
Yeah.
Henry Jackman. Sorry, Henry Jackman's music. But yeah, your boy get chills watching that scene. Though. That was so amazing how he brought down that plane. Though.
Yeah.
Wow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad heart.
Right. So later on, Cap runs into Natasha in the same area of the hospital where,
Right.
I forgot to mention, he hid the flash drive in this vending machine, right? And she tells him that, she knows who killed Nick, and that's when she mentioned the Winter Soldier, right? And she kind of have a history of sorts with him. So, like, on a mission years ago, her teammate got killed by the Winter Soldier, and, well, the Winter Soldier himself ended up shooting her, but the bullet went through her body
Right.
above the hip.
So I don't know. I don't think it's her teammate got killed. I think the teammate probably got killed, but really, what is somebody she had to protect? And
Okay.
that person got assassinated. I forget the actual conversation, but yeah, I don't remember it being a teammate necessarily.
All right.
But it probably wasn't.
I probably misread what she said, but
Right.
It involved a mission. That's all I can remember right now, right?
Right. Yeah, basically it's a mission that he messed up on her. And she just couldn't believe it had somebody out there who's so good, who better than her effectively. No?
Yeah, exactly. So while they're analyzing the files on the flash drive at this like random Apple store, I thought that was pretty funny. Even watching it now, it's kind of funny. Kind of, it's product placement, but it's 2014. I mean, right? Whatever. You realize that the source of who wrote the files is in a town in New Jersey, right? And it just so happens, I love that it goes back to the first film. It's the same camp where he trained before he even got selected for the Super Soldier program. I was like, I like that. Yeah.
That same army base. I forget the name of the base, but it's the same army base that, it's the formation. You learn that was the formation of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well.
Yes.
And we learn that with the as well.
Yeah, and when you go inside, you see like a S.H.I.E.L.D. bunker. You actually see the S.H.I.E.L.D. logo on the wall and whatnot. There's a hidden elevator which takes them to a basement of the building. And you see this room now with like these old supercomputers. And oddly enough, a USB hub. I thought it was really interesting, right?
Right.
And Natasha plugs the flash drive into it, right? And one of these supercomputers.
Yeah, she makes a war games joke, I think.
Yeah. Would you like to play a game? And I like that. It's from War Games. I was like, yes, I know. That was a great moment, right?
Right. Yeah, because he watching the movie, so he catch up with it now. And he doesn't in the mood to be fucking around right now with the jokes.
Exactly.
Again, good moment because the MC like to stop the action, stop the drama, then for some dumb joke. Nope. Not today.
Nope.
Not
with this movie. Not with the Russos. We don't do that when the Russos are around, right?
Right.
Anyway, so one of the supercomputers activates now, and we get Ricardo. One of Ricardo's favorite scenes in this movie. I remember that for sure.
Yeah.
The virtual consciousness of Arnim Zola, right? And it's a good thing that I recap the first film because they said that when he was captured, right, in the middle battle or action sequence, he was remanded to Switzerland, right, and he pretty much kind of sell out Red Skull and pretty much let the Allies know what was going on, right. Visually, though, I love Zola's virtual look. Like, I love that sort of like incomplete kind of print out of the face with the glasses on. I love that. That's really cool, and the way how it moves too.
Yeah, very 70s computer aesthetic. That green line stuff.
Yes.
Deeply chilling, I might add as well. Like his whole look and monologue that he comes with afterwards is just very chilling.
Yes, indeed. And then we get, you're right, one of the best info dump scenes ever, in my opinion, right? So these are the cliff notes, right? Because I don't want to reiterate everything this man was saying, right? So S.H.I.E.L.D. was formed after the war, and Arnim and other ex-Nazi scientists were recruited, right? So those scientists became the new Hydra. Like when they dropped that, I was like, I love that. Just the idea that, this whole Hydra thing not done, the whole Red Skull worship not done, like even though we're working for S.H.I.E.L.D. now, no, we're gonna rebuild Hydra, right? Literally from the ground up, right? Since Red Skull disappeared into Vormir, because
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Eventually, right. But we learn that later. Yeah.
That's what happened, right? So whatever.
Right.
Over the years now, the new Hydra fed into all these major historical wars, and when certain people had to be knocked off, yeah, they got the Winter Soldier, right? And there's a moment where Natasha says, "That's impossible. Shield would have stopped you." And then we get some major foreshadowing into Civil War, because Adam says accidents happen. And then you see a newspaper page with the deaths of Howard Stark and his wife. Right?
Yes.
And we all thought that it was a car crash. And then I love in the beginning of Civil War, they tell you, well, this is how would that happen. I love that. Yeah.
No, but this was a great plot moment because it is like, wait, Howard Stark get murdered, Judd? Right.
And he's one of the founders of Sheila. That's his shocking part too. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was like a big plot moment. It's a great moment. I love this sequence. I mean, the aesthetic of it is great. If you know the filmmaker Adam Curtis, he's like a documentarian kind of guy, but he just do this kind of offbeat counter narrative kind of stuff with his documentarianism. It straight up have that aesthetic to it. Like, you know, it's this whole interpreting reality differently, political histories differently, you know, that kind of stuff. Power of Nightmares especially, it does that conceit really well. And yeah, this was a controversial scene because this scene is edited differently in different parts of the world.
Oh, really?
You know, MCU does, yeah, right. The MCU does do that all the time, right? What they'll do is, you know, because it's so international, you know, it's Disney. What they'll do is that depends on the part of the world, you'll see a certain thing and they may edit or cut according. So, like, another moment like that is earlier in the film, the movies that Steve was watching, it's different lists in different parts of the world. Right, in America, it was like Star Wars, so on, but in Britain, it's this. Because the rule of thumb is wherever the audience would be familiar with to get the point of the scene. Right, the MCU does do that, Disney does do that all the time. But in this, it's really controversial because, of certain political figures and faces just show up in the sequence, given the undertone of it and given the real American history throughout the 20th century. That's really interesting and controversial of what they did there. It had Hugo Chavez and people who, you know, stuff like that. Now. All these political figures of the past, but it's like, wait, that is what you're trying to put into the story, and it's a brilliant plot beat in my opinion.
Yes.
It's a really, really good well edited sequence, and they really make it work.
Right.
Love this
and just to close the sequence off, right? So, that's the info dump. Sorry. So basically, Zola have this algorithm built into Project Insight. So once it's activated, it will ensure that the plan plays out the way how they wanted. The plan basically is that, you know, to create a world so chaotic that humanity will sacrifice its freedom to gain security. I love that, right?
Right.
And the last
they're basically building off of the mistake that the Nazis and Red Skull make is the idea that we could just conquer by force. No, people will rebel and fight back. You have to
get people. You
have to do a different approach, right? Yeah, and it's great real world stuff. Like again, you know, sorry, it's a lot of real world shit like that. I mean, that is how it is.
That's
true.
Go ahead. And the last couple of shots, okay, I forget this, right, are genuinely creepy, Jay, because Hydra's so dreaded. They already have like a newspaper page and magazine cover for Cap's debtors. I watched that.
Yes, and the closing line is brilliant too. That closing line where he says,
"You're out of timeline."
Yeah, exactly. We are both men.
Just like you, we're out of time.
We're out of time. And then the second you hear that, Abdesal coming.
Yes, right.
You just tell them the story to stall them.
Yes.
And I do love the funny moment where I think is it Cap who destroys the screen and Zola just pops up on another screen. He's like, dude, seriously,
exactly. It's like typical muscle and movements, right? Yeah. So just say, all right, as I was saying, okay, you know, your pointlessness. But it's a great villain moment.
Indeed. Right.
There's a little piece there that, you know, they kind of built on with one of the What If episodes. But seeing him there as a disembodied computerized head, I honestly figured that they were going to use Zola as a type of MODOK-esque character.
I thought so
because,
too.
I mean, it's a computer and you did it in What If, but
and then when they play off
that thing that they used, I was like, okay, no, maybe not, you know, just
that thing, indeed, right?